For the last few years, Alfa Romeo, while still on sale in Ireland, kind of disappeared into the background. In the last 18 months or so, they have been taken over by Stellantis Group, which means Alfa are back in all forms in terms of promotion, dealer networks and support. And what a car to come back officially on the market with the Tonale, which is proof in this beautiful red that Alfa Romeo still make stunning looking cars. I'm not sure whatever happened to him, but there was a journalist called Jeremy Clarkson who said, you can't be a petrol head unless you've owned an Alfa. Well, GTV for my sins for a little while. This is quite a bit more modern, however, and this one is a plug-in hybrid. There's 3 trims and there's a mild hybrid version also, but Alfa Romeo Ireland reckon this plug-in hybrid could be around 60 to 70% of sales. It will get you about 50 kilometers on pure electric range. You can also drive that in a combination with the petrol engine, which should help you achieve somewhere around 6 litres per 100 kilometers. There's also a 1.3 petrol engine going on under the bonnet. You're still getting that really distinctive front grille with the license plate over to the left of the vehicle, sitting on beautiful diamond cut spoked Alfa alloys. This Veloce trim. You have Italian flags in the housing of the side mirrors, a little bit of grey skirting going on around the side of the car. You've got keyless entry, and it all tapers out in a beautiful rear that just something about them, isn't there? They're just like this car. As soon as I picked it up yesterday, it's been turning heads everywhere I go. If you get the mild hybrid version, the charging port is here. Look at the light clusters, like just the strip across the back, even the badge. It just sets off something inside you that just is exciting. Like few and fewer cars these days look like this. And it's a bit of a sight to behold, to be honest with you. You've got an electric tailgate in this Veloce version of it. If you go for the plug-in hybrid, you're going to sacrifice boot space because it's 385 litres versus 500 litres on the mild hybrid version of it. So there is quite a significance there. Under here, you can store your cables for your Type 2 charging. You also get a granny charger. Comes in a handy little pouch that isn't branded. Come on, Alfa, be proud of your logo. Stick it on there. There's a ski hatch with access that actually covers up if you have the armrest down. You've got some 12-volt charging, and there's hooks for shopping and tethering things for tying things down. So it's actually, they put a lot of thought into that boot. It is just a little bit small on the plug-in hybrid version of the car. But just look at it, just look at it, it's beautiful. You may find that there is a bit of a compromise in the back of the car, depending on how much rear leg room you need. Now, the armrest is very wide, and that kind of takes up the entire centerpiece. If you've got 2 kids on either side, I've put the booster seats in here to give you an idea of how that would work out. If you can put the passenger seat forward, then you've got tons of leg room. A driver who might be 6 foot is going to push back on this seat and just kind of just compromise the knee space in particular. But there's definitely places to put your feet, which I like. So there's kind of a flat floor. You've got USB-C and USB charging in the back, and you've got your own air vents. They're not climate control adjustable for just back here in its own zone, but you do have at least some air coming through. And the sides of the doors are kind of high enough, but just about enough to keep probably most kids happy, as much as you can keep kids happy. It's quite black, and it's snug enough. By design, an Italian car is going to kind of make you feel a bit cocooned. So I like in some ways that Alfa have kind of stuck to their guns and made an Alfa Romeo still feel like an Alfa Romeo despite being part of a wider group. I do totally appreciate as well that some people might not even notice these things, but just the little groove here in the side of the glass, just lovely little touches that make it stand out. Just a couple of things to let you know about as well here on the channel. If you want to support us, you can hit up the link buymeacoffee.com/nobbyOnCars. You might want to tip us €5 for a coffee. And also a podcast called Driving Forces, which I'm now involved in, which you can find wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, other kind of places. A weekly motoring podcast. Appreciate your support if you want to check that out. Still feels classically Alfa in here. Again, there's very few buttons that I'm seeing shared with other products within the Stellantis range, so they've kind of kept themselves to themselves, and I like that. You've got this 3-spoke steering wheel that feels very sporty, not too thick, just about right. An engine start stop button down here, which is just straighten your eye line. I love the throwback dials to the Alfas of the 30s and beyond. Little air vents that have got lovely grooves in them, textures. There's many different textures going on inside the cabin. This is an automatic gearbox. You have adjustable dampers. If you go into dynamic mode, you can have an electric only mode by the twist of that toggle there, and you can save some charge for later or charge the car on the go with the e-save button, which is down here. Couple of quirks: sometimes the rear view camera doesn't want to come on and you just get the sensor screen on your fairly wide display. That's a little bit strange. The odd time you're pressing the boot release button a couple of times for it to work. I nearly wondered, do they engineer in these little quirks just to have a bit of a laugh at Alfas of old? I'm not sure. Good storage, comfortable armrests, seats are supportive, fairly easy screen to use. There's a lot going on in it, all right, but you've got e-hybrid information about your trip, you've got CarPlay, Android Auto, everything is sharp and crisp. You've got DAB radio, not that that works much in Ireland thanks to RTE, and yeah, just generally it kind of works. It's a nice wide screen, gives you all you need to know, loads of shortcut buttons to your climate control, things you want to touch quickly. You've got wireless charging depending on what model you're going for, wireless charging down here for your phone, active cruise control, and these huge glorious Alfa paddles that are on the side of the steering wheel for gear shifters. They almost, well, not almost, they do block the view of your indicators and your windscreen wipers, but I think that's kind of the point. There's great adjustability in the steering wheel, up and down, in and out, depending on how close you like to sit, and there's tons of shortcuts here to your modes, your radar cruise control, your volume. You can change the radio station from here. You can do quite a lot from the steering wheel without having to take your eyes off the road or start messing around with buttons here. If you're over 6 foot, I mean, this is going to be an okay place for you to sit. A little bit cramped in the back, there's no doubt, but I think there's enough space in here. You are still cocoon though, but again, that goes with the spirit of Alfa and how it kind of wants to make you feel part of the car. So I'm okay with that. Once you're on the move in the Tonale, it's a quite enough affair. There are occasions where the engine will make some kind of rough enough sounding noises if you accelerate hard. And there's kind of like a whirly noise coming from somewhere beyond the dashboard that doesn't quite match the €55,000 price tag of the car. But if you have a little bit of charge in it, generally at any sort of moving around speeds, city centre traffic, urban school drops, all those things, it's a very quiet affair, and you can see what mode it's in right in front of you. So whether it's full electrification or if it's using a combination of both, it will tell you very clearly. If you do find things a little bit hard, then you can adjust the dampers in it. I like that they have that. Like, they're the little kind of things that you just wouldn't get in a lot of other cars, but again, just owing to that driving enjoyment sense of an Alfa Romeo, they're there. Indicator noise is very, very loud. It's like somebody hammering away at something there. So here's a steep enough hill. I am needing a bit of petrol to get us up here, and yeah, it's a little bit rough sounding at times. Steering is very, very light. Sometimes you'd nearly say too light, but this is predominantly probably a car aimed at going around cities, so keep it light and easy to park. And then if you want to softly pull away from the lights in just electric mode, it's easy to do. It's very, very quiet. It's like a different car. And then back on the power. Now, there are times, certainly going into corners, you'll feel a bit of body roll. It's not perfect. Some of the safety features, lane keep assist, which is, it really will give you a firm enough turn of the steering wheel if it thinks that you're going across a solid white line. You can really feel it doing its thing. You only seem to be able to adjust the dampers in the dynamic mode though, so that's sports mode essentially. It'll hold on to the revs higher, but in that mode you can make the dampers softer, and soft damper active will come up on your screen. But it's kind of why would you'd want them on if you're in a sportier mode. If you are in that harder damper setting and the wheels aren't huge, like, you could definitely kind of judge the car and say the arches could be filled a little bit better. So they're not the biggest wheels in the world, but it can be at times a little bit hard. Again, owing to that, I suppose, sportier setup and driving experience of the car. The paddles are lovely. I mean, they look great. They are massive, but I just don't know how often you're going to use them in an automatic and with a hybrid engine going on. I mean, yeah, they work. You can drop down to third or whatever gear you want and quickly shift back down, and the changes are swift. And does it make you feel that bit more involved in the car? Perhaps. There are very quick gear changes when you do either the gear shift or the paddles. And then if it's not sure what you're doing, after about 20 seconds it will pop itself back into full auto mode. A little bit of body roll, doesn't necessarily feel like 280 brake horsepower. There's a little bit of hesitancy there when you do want the power. The revs come on after about half a second, and then the engine kicks into life and gives you the power that you need. And the odd time, it's not entirely sure what gear you want to be in. And after a few seconds it'll jump into maybe third from fourth. But it does get a little bit confused as to what gear you're looking for some of the time. There's an auto hold feature with the brakes that I really like, that just, I didn't turn anything on for that, it just came on. But it means you can take your foot off the brake when you're sitting at a set of lights, whatever. It won't roll backwards, it won't roll forwards. It just stays like an obedient Alfa Romeo. I think, and although the power output of the Tonale in plug-in hybrid will keep most people happy performance-wise, if you are someone who's really after the higher output end of things, I'm not sure it'll be quite what you're looking for in the engine lineup. Perhaps actually a fully electric Giulia would be a more interesting proposition, because it will, I presume, handle pretty well. It will look even more stunning, and you'll get a range of supposedly up to 700 kilometers when it goes on sale in a couple of years' time. It's so good to be back driving Alfa Romeos. It's been quite a few years since I had a more powerful Stelvio, and that's kind of the only big drawback of this car. Sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes it feels like the 1.3, even with the hybrid technology, just isn't enough. And you'd love this to be a 2 litre or a 3 litre, but certainly something maybe, you know, a little bit higher up the food chain in terms of CC, and just a bit more performance where it's less strained at times, and it kind of matches how it looks, because to look at it, it is absolutely glorious. Don't buy any other colour except red, please. Maybe the green, but I think the red is the one you're going to want. You're not committed to a hybrid, don't forget. There is the mild hybrid with a 1.5. So by 2027, the petrol Alfa, as we know it, will be a thing of the past. So you either hang on for what will be a fairly quick 4, slightly less than 4, because it'll be by 2027, or you jump into something with a petrol. The Tonale PHEV Q4 is the all-wheel drive version of it, but you are looking at mid-50s before you get into one of them. So there's certainly a walk of about €5,000 with the entry car starting at €5 under 50,000. 15.5 kilowatt hour battery is what's on board if you go for the plug-in hybrid version. 90 kilowatt motor on the rear axle, so it turns it into four-wheel drive, giving you a total output of 280 brake horsepower. And if you charge that battery size by today's standards in price at around maybe high 30 cents, it'll cost you somewhere between 6 and 7 euro to charge. That's not factoring in things like night rates and all those extra things you can do. Solar, obviously, there's many ways, but worst case scenario, about 6 to 7 quid to charge this car. Gorgeous looking car, something a bit different. It's great to see it. Not cheap, you know, you're going to be touching fairly close to 60 grand or close enough to it if you want the higher specs of the car. That means it will remain quite rare on Irish roads, but isn't that the whole point of having something a bit special like this? You're not going to see too many of them in the car park beside you in Tesco. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.